Hey, what's going on, guys? I hope you all are doing well today. Elliot here. Welcome back to The Fragrance Well. It's time to do another blind buys video. Successful blind buys, that is. I've bought quite a few blind buys that I would consider to be successful acquisitions for my collection. Ever since I did my last blind buys video, which was almost a year ago to this point, which, by the way, we're coming up on a year of this channel being in existence. I'll do a video more specific to that a little bit later on. But yeah, we're talking about blind buys. I've got 10 here that I do consider to be successful. I did intentionally skip quite a few because I didn't want to have brand repeats. But yeah, I've got 10 here, and I'm going to go from the oldest one up to the newest one, because some of these are a little bit more recent, don't have quite as much experience with them yet, but that's just how I decided to put the list together. So let me just go ahead and get it out the way. I do not suggest everybody do blind buying on a regular basis. I'm not saying you should never do it, but I certainly never encourage it. The best thing absolutely is always going to be to either get your nose on it first by going to a store or a boutique, or get a sample, spend some time with it, decide if you want to buy it then, because you know, I don't know what your budget is like. I don't know what your disposable income is like. I know if I choose to blind buy a fragrance, I'm okay with it turning out bad because I ultimately made the decision. I don't get mad at anybody else other than myself if I choose to buy it and I don't like it. But a lot of people seem to really struggle with that concept, so I always suggest you do not blind buy. So let's go ahead and get the video started, but before we do, as always, please remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you do like the content, and please remember to hit that bell icon and enable notifications so you can be notified when I upload new videos. Let's get into it. All right, first up, coming from the house of Arabian Oud, this is Blue Oud. Arabian Oud, Blue Oud. So yes, this was a blind buy based off of a recommendation from someone I have great respect for, that being Equality Fragrances. He talked about it. He talked about, you know, what this fragrance has to offer, and I thought that sounded like a win for me. So actually, to be fair, my wife actually got this for me for my birthday last year, but it still constitutes a blind buy, because if I had gotten it and not liked it, I mean, it pretty much would have been a big waste of money. I don't know if you can get a sample of this. I have been to Arabian Oud boutiques, but before that I had not tried this one. So it was still a blind buy, but it was completely successful. Also comes with the raw oil, and this basically highlights Cambodian Oud and Indian Oud. And I love every facet of it. Gives me a myriad of different notes and accords that Oud has to offer. So once again, from the house of Arabian Oud, this is Blue Oud. Successful blind buy for me, but I definitely do not recommend that everybody else blind buy it. Next one's from the house of Ormond Jane. This is Montabaco Intensivo. Ormond Jane, Montabaco Intensivo. So this one also was recommended by Equality Fragrances. As you can see, I tend to like his recommendations, but this is stunning. I had experienced some Ormond Jane fragrances before buying this, but none of the original Montabaco fragrances. I know I wanted to get my nose on Verano. That's kind of one you'll definitely hear about, but they are my local niche perfumery was out of it, and I don't think they've ever had this one in stock. But this is stunning. Kind of a tea fragrance for me when it starts off. It's a leafy, dry tobacco fragrance. It's dry woods. There's some cooling air like accords, cooling spices. It's a wonderful fragrance, and I am certainly happy that I pulled the trigger on this one. But I did do a little bit of research. I definitely listened very heavily to what Equality Fragrances had to say about it, and some other people, before I jumped on it. Once again, from the house of Ormond Jane, this is Montabaco Intensivo. All right, next one's coming from the house of Dior, and it's Dior Homme Parfum. Dior Homme Parfum. So yeah, blind buy for me because I never got my nose on it before it was pretty much pulled from shelves. I'm assuming this used to be available in the States, but I don't know that for sure. But all of the original Dior Homme fragrances I never got my nose on in the stores because I was not into fragrances like that at the time, and I just never had a chance to put my nose on any of them. But I did have Dior Homme Intense, which was also a blind buy, and Dior Homme Original, which was also a blind buy. So I figured, since I love those two so much, there really shouldn't be a reason why I wouldn't love this, because you would think it would be based around the same concept, and based off of what others have said about it, it pretty much was. It just highlights a different take on it, but it's still kind of centered around that same iris DNA. And once I got it in, that is certainly the case. This one is my favorite because it accentuates the leather accord that is synonymous with Dior Homme Original. So yeah, successful blind buy for me. And also, I mean, it's kind of hard to get your nose on this either way. So I think this is one that a lot of people had to blind buy unless they were familiar with it when it was more readily available. Once again, from the house of Dior, this is Dior Homme Parfum. Moving on, next one's coming from the house of Tom Ford, and this is Tobacco Oud. Tom Ford Tobacco Oud. So like many people that are collecting fragrances now, a lot of newbies, so to speak, and I mean within the last 5 years, a lot of us would not have had the chance to get our nose on this if we hadn't just had experience with it before, because it's pretty much pulled from the shelves in the States. But people have talked about it, and based on what others have said, and also kind of knowing that I don't mind fragrances that are dark and woody and smoky and tend to be, maybe a little bit challenging. I tend to like a lot of scents like that. I decided to pull the trigger on this. It's been actually pretty readily available on a number of discounters now. So you could say it's not as hard to find, but you are going to pay a lot of money for it. So, it's not a safe blind buy based on smell and based on price, which again, I kind of have taken that term out of my vocabulary, safe blind buy. I hate using that because nothing is 100% safe for anybody. There's going to be someone who just doesn't like it. But anyway, that's why I pulled the trigger on this. I'm happy I got it. I think this scent is stunning, but I would not suggest that for everyone. You need to kind of have an idea of what you like and liking fragrances that this is categorized as before you decide to blind buy it. So once again, from the house of Tom Ford, this is Tobacco Oud. All right, next one's coming from the house of Francesca Bianchi. This is The Dark Side. Francesca Bianchi, The Dark Side. So just FYI, every fragrance I have from this house has been a blind buy. I've got 3 so far. They were all blind buys, and lucky for me, I like all 3 of them. I will say this one's probably my least favorite. Well, no, actually, that's not true. Another one I have, I'd probably say is my least favorite. I don't know. You know what? Actually, I don't know for sure which one I would say is my least favorite. It's probably irrelevant. Point is, I do like all 3 of them. When I say least favorite, I mean less likely to wear it. This one here is, like the name implies, it's a very dark, it's spicy and resinous fragrance. I think of this as a fragrance Dracula would wear. It reminds me of like an old haunted house, but it's not funky. It's just the mood of the fragrance. It's very just kind of dark and dreary, but I do enjoy the smell of it. But yeah, every fragrance from this house has been a blind buy for me. I've made my decisions to purchase the ones I purchased based off of some of the notes listed, based off of doing a little bit of research, based off of characterizations, and honestly, just genuine curiosity. And to be fair, you can get these for a really good price, so you're not making a massive investment and it becoming a massive loss. But I was so impressed with the first one I got, I've just been okay with trying out some other ones, and there's other ones I got on my list as well. But I probably should try to get like a sample pack, and that way I can decide overall, like, okay, I want this or that. So that's the story with the house of Francesca Bianchi, and once again, this is The Dark Side. All right, next one's coming from the house of Lorenzo Pizzaglia, and this is Van Py Rhum. Lorenzo Pizzaglia, Van Py Rhum. So the reason I grabbed this one, I actually, just on a whim, bought a sample of another fragrance from this house, was very impressed with it, so naturally that piqued my interest in the house overall, and I was actually looking to get that fragrance, but I happened to see a website-based review on this. It sounded so awesome that I just decided, you know what, I'm gonna pick that one up first. And it turned out okay. I wouldn't suggest everybody do that, but it turned out to be a big win. Also, this fragrance was more appropriate for the season that was upcoming. That other fragrance I was gonna wear more so in warmer weather, so I'll be picking that one up sooner, and we'll talk about it once I get it. But yeah, that's kind of how I blind bought this one. It was based off of an online review, and the review was really, really good, and not from a content creator either. This is a boozy vanilla fragrance that's very, very dark, kind of heavy, not overly sweet, and has earthy notes supporting it. So rum, a lot of types of vanilla, or a couple of types of vanilla, should I say, and patchouli. So if you like vanilla, you like patchouli, you like boozy notes, this might be one to check out. But I thoroughly enjoy this fragrance. Very successful blind buy. Once again, from the house of Lorenzo Pizzaglia, this is Van Py Rhum. Next one's coming from the house of Day 3 Fragrances. This is Filosofia. Day 3 Fragrances, Filosofia. So with the house of Day 3 Fragrances, I actually did go the right route. I got the sample pack, which at the time had every single fragrance in existence. This one I didn't get a sample of. I just decided to jump on it because I had been so impressed with the house up to the point I didn't have any reason to believe that this one wouldn't be at least a strong like at worst case scenario. But I love this stuff. It's somewhat warm and sweet, a little bit spicy, and a very smooth tobacco fragrance. It's just got like a dash of ashiness in it, just a dash of smokiness, but it's a very warm and inviting, cozy, relaxing tobacco fragrance, which is not what I usually categorize a tobacco fragrance as, but this one gives me that feeling, so it is what it is. Very successful blind buy, but this house does provide samples for pretty much all of their fragrances, so there's really no reason to not sample first. So once again, from the house of Day 3 Fragrances, this is Filosofia. Next up from the house of Homme, this is Silver Birch. Homme Silver Birch. So this is another house where the 2 fragrances I have were blind buys. Based off of recommendations, doing a little bit of research and categorizations for the fragrances. So again, I don't necessarily recommend that, but I haven't gotten a sample pack of it yet. I don't know if they have a sample pack that necessarily includes the fragrances I'm most interested in from this house, which is not a ton, but I just haven't sampled it, and they're not that expensive either. But this one here, I absolutely love. The smell is really great. It's exactly what I was looking for. I wanted a spring-centered fragrance, and this one definitely does that. It's a kind of a smoky vetiver in this, kind of emulating the smell of birch. I don't find birch to be in this, but there's kind of a smoky vetiver that's in this fragrance. Very nice citrus, a lot of aromatics. Kind of reminds me of walking on a wooden path near or on a beach that is surrounded by shrubbery and some botanicals. So it paints a nice picture in my mind. I love fragrances that can do that. So once again, from the house of Homme, this is Silver Birch. Moving on, next one's coming from the house of Montclair. This is La Cordee. Montclair La Cordee. As you can see, there's more of a name, but it's a little bit hard to pronounce, so I'm not gonna bother. But yes, blind buy, another recommendation from Equality Fragrances. He's gonna get a lot of shout out in this video, and this is stunning. So I basically categorize this as tea with a little bit of lemon and a little bit of peppermint. There's not a peppermint note given in this, but that's kind of how I would categorize it. The fragrance clearly is kind of based around the note of cypress. Cypress is in the name. Cypress is a given base note, so it has that characteristic. So the fragrance is a little bit green, but it's calming. It is a tea fragrance. It's one you can pretty much rock anywhere. It will work for so many different occasions. I find tea fragrances to be very versatile and just really good all-around choices. Successful blind buy, and just based off of the recommendation and the person giving the recommendation, that's why I decided to jump on it, because even though good deal on it, it still was not necessarily cheap. So once again, from the house of Montclair, this is La Cordee. All right, and last but not least, coming from the house of Savoir Faire, this is Soul Cafe. Savoir Faire, Soul Cafe. So this is actually my latest fragrance acquisition right now. This one I actually was trying to get a sample of, but they were sold out of samples, and they had a sale recently, so I decided to just go ahead and jump on this one based off of Equality Fragrances. Again, talking about it some time ago. There's a sector of the FragCom that kind of knew about this fragrance. They've known about it for a while. So I learned about it from that specific sector, and I'm new to it. I'm new to the house. But based off of getting this, this is absolutely stunning in my opinion, and I definitely want to grab some more of them. I'm going to try to get samples of them, but they do sell out of samples seemingly regularly because I've checked before. Kind of smells like orange juice right off the top, and it's kind of complex. I'm still learning this fragrance. At a point, I feel like it kind of smells a little bit similar to Oud for Greatness, or a take on Oud for Greatness. Not 100% the same, but kind of using those type of base notes to get that feel. There's an Arabian coffee note given in this. The first 2 times I wore it, I didn't get any kind of coffee, but I wore this yesterday, and I could smell that coffee accord clear as day. So I'm still learning this fragrance. It's still kind of getting used to what it has to offer. It's a little bit complex, and also I'm curious to see how it macerates. I think this one is gonna go through a little bit of a transition on me. Successful blind buy for sure. So once again, from the house of Savoir Faire, this is Soul Cafe. All right, guys, that is gonna do it for this video. That was 10 successful blind buys that I've had over the course of, I don't know, 6 months or so. I've got others, but I only wanted to focus on 10 and not do any brand repeats. And again, I do not necessarily encourage that. If you choose to make a blind buy, you gotta live with it, whether you love it or hate it, which if you love it, obviously you're gonna be happy, but if you hate it, you made the decision to buy it. You can't blame it on anybody else. So thanks again for watching all the way into the end. Let me know down in the comments below what some of your most successful blind buys have been. And remember to be well and smell well. And I will see you in the next episode of The Fragrance Well. Have a good one.